This message is broadcasted to raise awareness of a new drug in circulation. The SNILE drug. Its most obvious effects are mania, uncontrollable laughter, violent tendencies, and the alleged SNILE in which the drug was named after.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be looking into the analog horror series known as the Smile Tapes. I highly suggest that you also watch the original videos in their entirety, so I will leave links to the Potteriku channel in the description below. You'll find all of the Smile Tapes content on there. Furthermore, I will be cutting this series into two parts, the first covering volume 1 as well as the two shorter supplemental videos. The second video, which is scheduled for sometime next week, will be much longer and cover all of the rest of the Smile Tapes content. So without further ado, let's dive into the disturbing world of the Smile Tapes. Already, there have been 500 casualties from this mystery drug that causes side effects such as mania, laughter, and violence. We also know that it forces the one taking the drug to don an over-exaggerated smile going from ear to ear. In the case that we find ourselves outside, God forbid at night, we are given some tips as to how to proceed. We are warned to stay away from dark alleys as the majority of the deaths so far have either been in or near such locations. If we were to hear suspicious laughter, we must immediately begin running, and while on our escape, we must do all that we can to avoid any eye contact with the threat. Any interaction with the threat will almost certainly guarantee our demise. In the next part, we gain more information about the drug itself. We now know that the drug is a fungus, and the victims are consuming the spores, which can promptly cause headaches as well as cramps within the face. After observing two patients for only 1 week, we can see that the face cramps have made their mouths stuck in a smiling position despite them trying to resist. Additionally, we know that the two patients developed meningitis, which is a condition where the brain and spinal cord membranes are inflamed. Typically, it is a viral infection, but it can also be bacterial, or in this case, fungal, and in extreme cases, this condition can be life-threatening. Fortunately, the two patients here were able to overcome the illness of meningitis over the next few days. In week 2, however, the patients find themselves in a much more severe shape. Now they are unable to resist at all, and their faces are contorted into an even wider smile than the first week. Furthermore, their personalities have now changed to one that is more predatory, and they now yell out in manic laughter constantly. Current conditions now call for the subjects to be imprisoned for the safety of the staff. In week 4, we see yet another extreme change in the faces. The fungus has now permanently damaged the facial tissue as well as caused severe nerve damage. But despite the immense damage, the facial tissues are still able to maintain its contorted expression. In addition to the facial damage, the vocal cords are now no longer able to function due to the prior weeks of extreme usage from the manic laughter. In week 5, we begin to see rapid senescence, which is basically rapid aging. Along with the physical appearance of patient 1 deteriorating, we can also observe that their brain has now reached the late stages of Alzheimer's, meaning he has lost almost all, if not all, of his past memories. Patient 2 did not survive to week 5, and patient 1 lived up until week 6. During the autopsy, we find that fungus has begun development in the brain cells, and it can be observed secreting a substance that is similar to acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a compound found throughout the nervous system that helps in functions such as contracting smooth muscles and dilating blood vessels. Proceeding into the autopsy, we find an immense population of fungus in the amygdala section of the brain. About 30 minutes into the procedure, a sudden rupture of spores produced by the fungus begin exiting the mouth of the patient. The two morticians in the room almost certainly have inhaled some of the spores and have promptly been quarantined. In the next part of the video, we are introduced to a new character called SHAUN Gomez. SHAUN is a college student that lives with his dog, and he has decided to journal his daily life. At the start, things seem pretty normal, but we soon witness the downward spiral into madness of SHAUN. In the first log that we see, SHAUN tells us that he went grocery shopping one day and someone threw flour all over him. Little does he know that that was actually the lethal spores that took the lives of the patients we saw in the last part, and was not flour. Additionally, we also learned that his dog Max has been a bit strange lately, and we will be taking him to the vet soon. In log 28, Shaun tells us about a dream that he had where he was flying around in space when he met a man, and then we see the face from the popular web series from way back, Have You Seen This Man in Your Dreams?, which I thought was a pretty fun little Easter egg. In the following logs, we learned that Max's dog has gotten quote-unquote better, but since we know about the fungal disease, we can assume that Shaun actually spread it to Max, and he's instead beginning to feel the effects of it. Shaun has another dream that is similar to the first, and yet again he is met by the mystery man, but this time he is donning a smile. This more or less confirms that the fungus is beginning the steps of taking over Shaun's brain. In log 34, we learn that Shaun has been having the same dream for the past week, and that it's beginning to cause him concern. We can also see briefly at the bottom some numbers and letters that flash by. In log 35, he begins showing explicit signs that the illness is taking over. Shaun is getting uncontrollable twitches in his face as well as terrible migraines, but since only we, the viewer, know what's actually going on, Shaun just blames it on the stress of college. In the next log, Shaun updates us saying the pain is even worse now and that he is in agony, which forces him to see a doctor. The doctor just sums up Shaun's irritations as stress and electrolyte imbalance. The doctor also prescribed him some meds and tells him just to relax. In log 41, Shaun tells us that the pills from the doctor are not working and that his face is in immense pain. It feels as though someone is pulling the corners of his mouth up while also making it harder to blink. In logs 42 and 43, we learn that Shaun's dog Max has died, and that Shaun is at the point where he cannot stop smiling and is in both mental and physical agony. Shaun of course doesn't know it's because of the smile drug that Max died, and when Max was showing signs of improved health, that was the fungus taking over his brain. This shows us that the smile drug affects not only humans but animals as well, and depending on the organism, it may move faster through the body. In log 44, Shaun has seemingly done a 180 and says that he feels happy and is full of energy. Shaun believes it's a result of the man in his dreams and that he's the reason for the sudden change. In log 45, we see a contorted face of Shaun confirming that he is in the midst of his transformation under the smile drug. In the following logs, we see Shaun's delusions further setting in. He says that the mystery man gave him a quest to fulfill, and now Shaun is also having constant spelling errors, which could be a sign of the Alzheimer's developing, or maybe it's just a lunacy. Shaun also now believes that the world is unbearable and that there is too much sadness and wickedness, but he has the power to fix this. In log 47, we see text that says, "Everyone I see shall become happy. I hope I make you happy," foreshadowing that Shaun is going to do something terrible which will spread the smile disease to more people. In the next scene, we get a countdown from 10, and once it reaches 0, we begin hearing gunshots, screams, and sirens in the background, signaling to us that Shaun has begun attacking and killing others. In the police report afterwards, it is confirmed that Shaun was the culprit of a mass homicide armed with a knife. We learned that there were 17 casualties, including Shaun himself, as well as 10 injuries, as the video ends showing the smiling corpse of Shaun. So after this incident, we now know that the smile drug can greatly enhance the physical capabilities of the user. Shaun, with only just a knife, was able to reach 17 casualties as well as 10 injuries, and in the background you can also hear many gunshots, which further indicate the capabilities of the users for these drugs.
Welcome to Far History, where we explore Earth's huge past. Today, we ask the question, where did life originate? Well, there are a bunch of theories surrounding this, so let's get right into it. Our first theory is abiogenesis, life from no life. It proposes that organic beings originated from non-living matter in hydrothermal vents. This creates a chemical soup that may have caused a reaction, creating the simplest forms of life. In the last episode, I told you that the Earth was literally hell. So how could life survive in such conditions? Well, Earth only stayed hell until oceans appeared around 200 million years since the Earth's formation. Water is the most important ingredient to life. Without it, life would have never flourished. It also helped cool the Earth down to a relatively comfortable 212 Fahrenheit. Transformia. Now this theory is a bit more far off, but it's the most interesting. It suggests that life came from another world and exists throughout the universe. When asteroids or other space dust hit a fertile planet, some of its debris gets ejected back into space, possibly containing life forms. Around 4.1 to 3.8 billion years ago, the Earth experienced a late heavy bombardment, possibly indicating that life may have arrived from those asteroids.
Video called Far History focuses on a short discussion on the topic of where life originated. The narrator provides two theories, the first of which is abiogenesis, life from no life, proposing that over time living matter rose from non-living matter and hydrothermal vents, which created a chemical soup resulting in the simplest forms of life. The second theory is panspermia, which suggests that life exists elsewhere on other planets, and when those planets make contact with asteroids or other fertile planets, some debris will be shot off into space, which would mean that Earth was populated by the collision of other debris housing life forms. Before the narrator could continue, the footage glitches out, seemingly marking the end of the video. The final video we'll be taking a look at today is called Further Investigation, and as the name would suggest, we learn a lot more about the disease here. It's now been about a year since the mass homicide event involving Shaun Gomez, and there have now been almost 1,500 deaths and over 5,000 hospitalized due to the fungus. We also learned that since the fungus is unstable, it is likely to mutate in the future, which may create unique variants that will prove even tougher to handle. The video goes on to inform us that the way these spores spread is once the host dies, the spores are shortly released through the closest orifice. We learned in the first video that the fungus takes over the brain, and during the autopsy, the patient releases spores through his mouth, since that was the closest orifice. This potentially suggests that the fungus doesn't need to reach the brain to affect the host, although that is optimal. Perhaps it could develop in other organs, but lose the ability to control the host since the organ will be something other than the brain. The range of function is decently far, being about 32 feet or 10 meters. This provides enough space and time for someone to escape if they are quick, but if they are able to escape, they shouldn't return to the area for more than 30 hours, and the location should be quarantined as to not let other people absorb the spores. These individuals that are intentionally infecting people have been labeled as spore puffers. Unfortunately, the origin of the drug is still unknown, but it is speculated it first surfaced somewhere within the black market and was only brought to widespread media attention after the New Year's homicide with SHAUN. We also learn a bit more about the situation with the morticians from the first video. They are still being observed in quarantine, and so far they have only displayed mild symptoms. The location has since went tighter security regulations in an attempt to prevent any more spread from the SMILE patients. Wow, so the series is absolutely amazing so far. Today we went over volume 1 as well as the 2 shorter supplemental videos. If you want to check out the rest of the series before we put out part 2, go ahead and check the links in the description. This is quite possibly my new favorite analog horror series. So far, my main question is, who was the person that infected Shaun Gomez? Because the video said that the person threw the spores at Shaun and it wasn't some sort of accident. Was that the true originator and possibly the creator of the SMILE drug? Again, links to the YouTube channel as well as the creator's Twitter account, Potteriku, are in the description below if you guys will look into this series a bit more on your own time. Unfortunately, I got sick a few days ago. Hopefully it's not the fungus disease. And I'm starting to get over it now, but due to this, I had to split the video up. My voice starts to get a bit nasally and can't really speak for as long. So depending on how quickly I get over this sickness, part 2 will either be coming out on Saturday of this week or Monday of next week. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys all later.